Hello and welcome to the DEFCON Warning System Digest. As usual, I am your host, Thomas Lonely Wolf, the director of the DEFCON Warning System. Before we begin, let's get through the miscellaneous stuff we need to do. Be sure and like our video and subscribe to our video. I'm not even sure if I'm pointing in the right spot. Just pretend I'm pointing in the right spot on that YouTube video. Like and subscribe. When you like our videos, I feel all warm and tingly inside. And when you subscribe, you get notification when we put out new ones. We put out the updates once a month during green, more often during blue, yellow, hopefully never orange, and really hopefully never red. But during green, it's once a month at the beginning of the month. The digests come out generally in the middle of the month during green. Generally on the 15th is when we make these. In December, we're going to do 2 of these. There's going to be the digest, and we're going to be doing an Ask Me Anything. We do that every year. So if you have any questions you ever wanted to ask the director, I'll answer any question you want to ask, as long as it's not horribly personal. Please don't get into my family life. I'm not going to answer those. But ask me anything, almost anything, and I'll answer it. So on to this month's digest, which is what everybody has come here to listen to. Not new, but this has been an ongoing thing. Japan has continued to expand its military budget as it expresses fears over China and North Korea. Like I said, this is not something new. They're really concerned about war breaking out on the Korean Peninsula. On the Korean Peninsula, they're worried about not necessarily an expansionist North Korea. They don't really. I don't really see Japan being worried about North Korea marching into Japan. Certainly we know from history that North Korea has marched into South Korea, and the big worry is that they're going to do it again. Now, for the record, North Korea doesn't see it that way. North Korea believes that South Korea started the Korean War, but the general historically accepted version of events is that North Korea started the Korean War. But like I said, for the record, North Korea, see that itching again, North Korea doesn't look at it that way. But Japan and certainly South Korea are always concerned about North Korea just getting it into their heads that they're going to march across the demilitarized zone. And given North Korea's problem with food, given their paranoia about being invaded or attacked, they could just decide to jump the gun and attack South Korea before an attack comes. So it's not unreasonable to assume that North Korea would start another war. So Japan fearing war, so close to their borders, with North Korea slinging missiles over their territory. Now, they have not done that in a little while, but who knows what's going to happen? It could happen again. It's going to happen again, especially once these presidential elections are over. When I'm recording this, the election itself is over, but the controversy itself is not over. So technically, the president has the next president has not been officially elected yet. That happens in the Electoral College. So I'm not going to go into big old history of the Electoral College or what that means, or for foreigners, for non-U.S. citizens who don't understand what the Electoral College is, and for U.S. citizens who don't understand what the Electoral College is, you can look all this stuff up on Google.
Electoral College. We've got a tale to tell.
Officially, the President of the United States is elected in the Electoral College, not the public vote. The Electoral College happens in December. So officially, the United States has not elected the president yet. So everybody is kind of waiting for that to happen, to find out who they're going to have to deal with in 2021 for the next 4 years. So that's probably what North Korea is waiting for. That's certainly what China is waiting for, Russia, and everything like that. They've kind of got an idea who it's going to be. They're kind of reading the tea leaves and everything like that. But I'm not going to say that North Korea is not going to do something now, but it is winter. It's not a really good time. So I think we're kind of in a safe zone. But going back to Japan, this is going to be something that's ongoing. It's going to be something that continues on. They're just going to keep expanding their military. They've already authorized their military to take action outside of the borders. This was a a major change from the Treaty of World War II, where North Korea, in case you didn't know this, North Korea does not have a military. They have what's called a self-defense force. What's the difference? Nothing, except that Japan is not allowed to send their military to foreign soil. Now they've changed that, where their military is allowed to operate outside the Japanese theater. So, and this was done because of what's going on with Korea. So Japan is starting to take strides away from the old World War II treaties, and all this is coming down because of Korea. And now, we're starting to look at China, the whole of the Philippines. So it's going to be an interesting next few years. As far as North Korea goes, North Korea has unveiled its largest road mobile nuclear missile. Sizes, there's two things you have to know. Back when the arms race was going on between the United States and the Soviet Union, they're really good at their rocket technology today because they've just been doing rockets and missiles for decades and decades. But when they were first starting out, they weren't very good at it. So what they used to do is they used to build their missiles bigger, and so they came up with this really big missile. And I'm not going to look up what the name is. It's not important what the name is, but you can Google this stuff. But the United States looked at that and they said, well, the Soviet Union has this really big missile, so we need to make a really big missile. The United States didn't make big missiles because the United States was better at making missiles, so they were smaller, they were more compact. But the United States made this really big missile because the Soviet Union had this really big missile, and technologically wise, it really wasn't necessary. The Soviets just did it because they were just bad at missile making. Now they're not, but that's the history of really large missiles in the Soviet Union. Korea is making really big missiles to house more warheads. So once that thing gets up in the atmosphere and it hasn't been shot down, then they can just spray all these MIRVs, multiple independent reentry vehicles, which are then really hard to shoot down because you don't have a lot of time, you don't know where they're going, you can't plot a course until it's pretty much over the city or over the military base or over whatever target it wants. So these multi-warhead missiles are very dangerous once they spray out their independent reentry vehicles. So that's what North Korea is doing. It's got a larger missile with more warheads on it. And it should also be pointed out that these are road mobile missiles, which means they can be hidden. They're not sitting in silos like the United States has, like Russia has. They are meant to move around, so you don't know where they are. They're meant to hide in areas with a lot of trees, heavy forests, or even in mountains or something like that, so they can be dry. Road mobile missiles are not as accurate as silo-based missiles because you need your GPS satellites to be able to tell them where to go, as opposed to the silo missiles where you just kind of point and shoot. They don't need they kind of don't need the GPS because like the cannons of old, they just kind of knew where it was going to go, and once you fired it, that's where the cannonball went. Same thing with the missiles. Once you plot its course, the Earth is not going to change. It's going to continue to rotate. As it rotates, it's going to, the landmass is going to be where it's going to be, where you were predicted, and the scientists have done all the math, and so they know, fire the missile, and this is where it's going to land. Well, once you got the road mobile, you got an awful lot of calculations to make as to, in order for it to hit its target. That's why these Scud missiles that are always being fired off in the Middle East, that's why they're not very accurate, because they're fired off from these road mobile positions, and the math that goes into them just isn't there. It's the same thing with road mobile. Now technology is getting better and they're able to aim them more quickly, but road mobile missiles currently are not as accurate as a silo-based missile. But when it comes to a nuclear bomb, how accurate do you want it to be, especially for the psychological effect? If North Korea misses its target, it doesn't hit the military base, or God forbid doesn't hit the city that they were aiming at. I know that just sounded like I was saying, well, please let it hit the city. No, I meant, God forbid that they should aim at a city, but if they do and it misses, it's still going to have the same effect. They could fire off a nuclear missile in the middle of the desert, and it would have a devastating effect on the American psyche, or whatever country that it hits, and it'll affect a number of countries psyches. Let's say they fired a missile off and it hit somewhere in South Korea. Do you think the United States will not be affected by that? Of course they will, because they know that North Korea has more. In fact, the current estimate is North Korea has 60 nuclear weapons ready for use. Now that estimate, we tweeted that out just recently, but that estimate actually has been around for a couple of years, and more likely than not, they have many more than that. So they're working on increasing their nuclear stockpile. So I think it's naive to think that over the last 2 years at least, when the estimate was first come up with, that North Korea doesn't have more. So that's what's going on with North Korea at the moment. And like I said before, they're kind of waiting still on the presidential election to see who they're going to have to deal with. If Trump gets reelected, we're going to see more of the same. If Biden gets elected, it's going to, there's going to be a lot of factors, and we are going to go into an analysis of, if Joe Biden gets elected, we're going to go into an analysis of what a Joe Biden presidency is going to be like. Normally we don't release those to the public. We do those internally. We've done those internally for years, but this time we're going to take a shot and give our analysis publicly so you guys can know where we're thinking. The reason we never did that before publicly is because nothing we can say that won't be interpreted as political. And because we're not a political organization, we've always tried to stay away from that, but we think it's important that you kind of know what we're thinking at the moment, what you can kind of expect from a president. So, because he has so much power behind him, so that's why we're going to do this publicly and take a shot and see what the public thinks of it. Maybe we'll do more of those for future presidents, or maybe we'll just say, this is just too controversial. We'll just keep these internally and go from there. I should keep some fruit puncher here to drink for when my voice starts to go out like that. The United States has moved forward with arms sales to Taiwan, taking off China. China has said that if the United States sends troops to Taiwan, that they will take military action. The United States has actually sent troops to Taiwan for exercises and training. So far, China has not reacted to that. That's a recent event. That didn't go out in our update. That is a more recent event from the update that we gave out on the first, but so far China hasn't done anything. But China is certainly upset that the United States has sent more arms to Taiwan. That's gonna come to a head of what the United States will do when China finally invades Taiwan. Your guess is as good as mine. We have a defense pact with Taiwan, but how far the United States will carry it? Good question. How many lives will the United States think it's worth to rescue Taiwan from an almost intractable situation? Because there's just no way that Taiwan will be able to defend itself against a full-scale Chinese invasion. Now, there's a whole lot of thought, there's a whole school of thought behind a Chinese invasion of Taiwan. I think we actually ran an article about what an invasion would look like, what kind of casualties that China would expect. There is the whole point that a lot of China's military are not happy to be in the military. They're there because they have to be, or they're there because they get more food, they get more benefits, they get more power being in the military. But because of China's one-child policy, a lot of the boys in Chinese military are only sons. So when they die in military action, that is the end of the line for their family, and they kind of don't like that. So a lot of Chinese forces are really looking forward to sacrificing themselves for the party. So how much Chinese forces will fight? Well, they'll fight because they've got a gun to their head, to the back of their head from their own country, saying fight or die. But exactly how far they'll go, how much they'll fight in invasion of Taiwan. Remember, China got its tail kicked in Vietnam. China has not done very well when fighting against India. There have been skirmishes there. They did fight a small war a little while ago that China says they won. You can take that for what it is, but the Chinese military, at least the guys fighting on the field, aren't terribly happy to be there. These aren't really volunteers. So how hard they'll fight, we don't know. Remember when China went to fight in Korea against the United States and South Korea? China just poured a ton of people in there, and the best they were able to do was a draw. And the United States was very seriously hampered by politics at home. If the United States was allowed to fight the war the way a war should be fought, the Korean War may have come out very, very differently. But okay, I'm not going to go into the politics of the Korean War. I'm just talking about from a strategic military point of view. Strategically, militarily, the United States was very hampered in what they were allowed to do in Korea, so therefore the war came to a draw. And like I said, China was not hampered like the United States was. They just poured a bunch of people in there, and they still only were able to do a draw. So that tells you kind of how much China is willing to fight an actual war. So there you go. But again, China not happy with arms sales to Taiwan, and likely we're going to see more arms sales to Taiwan. Taiwan is definitely beefing themselves up for an expected invasion. China has admitted ambiguity regarding its nuclear arsenal due to hostile policies of the United States. China has always said they have about 300 missiles. The DEFCON warning system believes it's much more than that. Now they're openly admitting ambiguity regarding its nuclear arsenal, so whether they have 300 missiles or not, your guess is as good as anybody else's. Chances are, no. Chances are they have more. Certainly their nuclear program is very well hidden. They certainly got, they got 1 billion slaves to get things going and hide things. So, and China is a pretty vast country, and they are not open at all. So, it's almost like North Korea when it comes to their military. We kind of don't know what's going on. China has surprised us in the past, so it would be no surprise to know that they have more. I think that the public, I'm not making a political recommendation or a military recommendation. The United States can go ahead and do whatever it wants, whatever they think is best in their own best interest. Russia can do whatever they want in their own best interest. Any other country can do whatever they want. So I'm putting all this out there. I'm not making any kind of policy recommendation. For the public, I am saying that the public should presume that China has more missiles than they're saying. And you guys, all of us, should presume that our cities, will come under attack in the event of a nuclear war with China. Assume that China has the arsenal to pull it off. Now, China's philosophy right now has always been to just inflict enough pain to keep the United States out of a war. That's kind of what they're doing over in the South China Sea and Taiwan. Their forces are meant not to fight a war with the United States, but just to inflict enough pain to keep the United States out. And politically, they've got a pretty good plan going, because the United States is a really fractured country at this time. They really don't have the appetite for any kind of war, and any kind of major war with any kind of significant casualties is going to turn the tide against any kind of war, as long as the United States itself does not come under attack. As long as they don't attack continental United States, as long as they don't attack Alaska, Hawaii, China will pretty much have a free run in their area. Once significant casualties are inflicted on the United States is going to pull out. Or they're just not going to have the wherewithal to fight a war like a war needs to be fought. And the Gulf Wars didn't do any favors to fighting a real war, because the Gulf Wars were so fast, casualties were so minimal. Now that's kind of the war that the public expects. So the next war the United States gets into, they're going to expect to be over in a couple of days, and we're just going to have a few hundred casualties, and that's going to be it. And that's not what a real war, especially a air-sea war with China, is going to be like. The United States is going to lose carriers, they're going to lose other ships, and it's going to be nasty, because that's the kind of war that China is getting ready to fight. Because it's going to take too long for the United States to send troops over to repel an invasion. Those troops have to be sent over by ship, they have to be sent over by plane, and ships can be sunk, and planes can be shot down, and it's not going to be pretty for the United States. it's not going to be pretty for China when they try and move into when they move their land forces in, because Taiwan is pretty well dug in. But for the United States, it's going to be a lot worse than the Gulf War. So, but anyway, okay, getting off that tangent there. So I went back to Taiwan. Going back to the nuclear ambiguity. So, like I said, just prepare if a nuclear war does take place between the United States and China, and it's not looking like one is going to take place in the near future. Even if war happens over Taiwan, it's not going to go nuclear. If a war actually happens over Korea, it is likely not going to go nuclear unless North Korea does something stupid like lob a few missiles over to the United States, or lob a few missiles onto... If North Korea starts shooting off nuclear missiles, it's very likely North Korea is going to get nuked themselves. But as long as they keep it conventional, more likely than not, it's not going to go nuclear, unless North Korea decides to go the nuclear terrorist route, saying that, okay, we have a conventional war, and if the United States sends over anybody, we're going to start lobbing nuclear missiles. The United States is going to turn around and say, okay, if you lob missiles, we're going to lob missiles, and North Korea very likely is going to call the United States bluff. Now, if North Korea actually does fire off missiles, the United States is going to respond, but what they're going to bet on is that the United States is going to blink and back off, because the United States is not going to want to sacrifice San Francisco for Seoul. I know half the country is more than happy to sacrifice San Francisco for Seoul, but okay, let's set that aside and just say the United States, as a policy, is not going to want to sacrifice one of its cities for South Korea. So that is what North Korea is going to bet on. And I've gone off a little tangent again, but I think that's what North Korea's thinking is going to be. It's not going to purposely get into a nuclear war. It's going to use nuclear blackmail, and it may even go beyond that. Once it's got its nuclear program, here I go, a tangent again. Once it's got its nuclear program going, there may come a time, especially if there's a very severe famine, or there's any kind of insurrection, or who knows. The dear leader gets insulted in a way he doesn't like. They just may turn around and say, do what we say, or we're just going to nuke you. Use the whole nuclear blackmail thing. I can see that as being part of their policy in the future. So moving on to Russia. Russia has refused, forgive me. The United States has refused an offer by Russia to extend the nuclear arms pact for a year, citing that the agreement would not include nuclear warheads. So the expired arms treaty, what it did is it capped nuclear missiles. The problem with the United States has, one, is that they didn't believe that Russia was honoring the treaty. The other part is that the treaty doesn't extend to nuclear warheads. So that meant that you limit your weapons, but you wouldn't limit the warheads. And Russia's problem was that, now see, I've got the document in front of me, so I'm kind of like reading. I want to make sure I get the quote correct. What it would is it would cap all nuclear warheads, but it would also cover tactical nuclear warheads. Now, Russia didn't like that idea because of a new generation of weapons. So the treaty, what it is, it covers strategic weapons, but not tactical weapons, and Russia doesn't want that limitation because they want to deploy more tactical weapons, which is what Russia has been doing, especially because they've got that whole theater around them, including all of Europe and Asia, while the United States has these wonderful little oceans that are protecting them from a battlefield being near them, aside from these ICBMs flying over the poles and nuking their own country. But that's kind of the sticking point. So since I kind of scatterbrained what I just said, let me try and re-summarize that. The START treaty is expired. Russia wanted to extend it. The United States didn't want to extend it because they didn't believe that Russia was honoring the treaty. So all they would do is just limit the United States and would not limit Russia. And also because the United States wanted to extend the nuclear warhead cap to tactical weapons, which Russia did not want. it also should be noted that the United States kind of doesn't like the idea that China is not being covered by these treaties, and the United States didn't want to be hobbled while China has a free rein to develop as many nuclear warheads as they want. And again, we go back to China being ambiguous about their nuclear weapons program. I would go so far as to say they've been lying about their nuclear weapons program. So it's no wonder that the United States kind of, if Russia's not going to honor it and China is not covered by it, why should the United States be limited? Why should the United States be the only one party to basically a one-sided treaty? And that's what the United States says. Russia, for its part, isn't too happy with the United States because they believe that the United States has been violating the treaty as well, and so they see themselves as, well, we'll give this another chance. We're the reasonable people. The United States is the unreasonable people. So both sides view each other with suspicion. And again, the United States is saying, Russia is hiding their actual nuclear development. So why should they be limited? So that's kind of like, that's what's going on with the whole, START treaty and why the United States is not jumping on board with it. Russia has launched a trial balloon for a military alliance with China. This is a very interesting thing. This is kind of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. China and Russia are not the bosom buddies that the media is trying to paint them as. They're definitely uniting against a common enemy, which they see in the United States. But Russia and China do share, a common area that they have legitimate disputes about. So this is just, Russia trying to ally with China in order to gang up on the United States. China is, looking at allying with Russia and getting involved with more military training and maneuvers because they want a united front against the United States. It's kind of like what happened in World War II. The United States allied with Russia against Germany. The United States allied with China against Japan. So this is just kind of more allies of enemies to fight a different enemy. So how strong this alliance will be? Well, probably pretty strong when it comes against the United States, but like I said, Russia should not be trusting China, and China does not like Russia. So this is kind of like the same kind of warning that we've tried to give Australia. Australia has been trying to make nice with China, and we keep telling them, China's not your friend, Australia. I don't know what you're thinking when you're doing this, but it's the same thing with Russia. China is not Russia's friend. They better be real careful about that. The UN Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons has reached 50 ratifications needed for entry into force. The United States is not part of that treaty. Clearly, Russia and the other nuclear states are not. But exactly what this treaty means, nothing. But it is a milestone. You've got 50 countries in there who think nuclear weapons aren't really a good idea, but they are. It's a nice token gesture, but it really means absolutely nothing. So I'm not going to cover this too much. If you want, you can look this stuff up, but it really means nothing as far as the spread of nuclear weapons. Finally, on Iran, the UN embargo. Arms embargo on Iran has expired, and the countries are, especially Europe, are now looking to Iran to start selling more arms. Russia selling more arms. This arms embargo just really did not have a lot of countries on board. Russia, because Iran is their ally. That's a foolish alliance, I think. Iran is going to drag Russia into a war that they don't want to get into, but too bad for them. Russia is going to be dragged into it. But Europe, the pacifists that they are, that's not just me being knee-jerk. That's an analysis of their personality. They kind of don't like war, especially because, guess when you have two wars in one century on your continent, you kind of get a little gun-shy. But, with the Middle East right there, they're they kind of want to keep things nice and calm. But the problem is when you keep giving in to the terrorists just get more demanding. Well, if you keep giving in to Iran, Iran is just going to keep getting more demanding. So Iran, with the help of the European Union and other countries, has been able to pretty much survive the embargo. And now that the embargo has expired, Iran is going to be able to build up their military more. They're going to be able to get more money to continue developing their nuclear weapons program. Iran says they do not have a nuclear weapons program. Iran has actually come out and said that nuclear weapons are forbidden under Muslim teachings. It should also be noted that Iran is lying. And actually, according to Iran's belief in their religion, it is acceptable to lie to your enemy. So when Iran comes out and says that they do not believe in nuclear weapons, they're not developing nuclear weapons, they are lying and they are permitted to lie. So whenever Iran says that they don't have a nuclear weapons program, they do. And if you don't want to believe me, that is entirely your choice. I'm just giving you the information and you can do whatever it is you want with it. This is something that's going to come up again and again, especially now that the embargo has expired. We're just going to keep finding more information about Iran developing the nuclear program. I should come out and say that the International Atomic Energy Agency has done inspections in Iran, and they continue to give Iran a clean bill of health. They say that Iran has been complying with the agreements they have made to not develop nuclear weapons. On the other side, there are groups and people who say and believe that Iran has been hiding their program, that these inspections have always been done with plenty of notice for Iran to clean up the area. If they are developing nuclear weapons there, they don't decontaminate the area. So as long as these inspections are not done whenever, wherever, there's just really no way of knowing. You can take Iran's word for it if you want to. I don't think you should. So but that is kind of our analysis on what's been going on. This has been kind of a short digest. There's not been a whole lot going on, and that's kind of a good thing. People get worried when the DEFCON Twitter starts getting a little too active, because that means something horrible is going on. So far, nothing horrible has been going on lately. Things have been just kind of building up. Everybody's been pretty much waiting for the U.S. election to finally shake itself out. So we may start seeing things next year, especially spring, because winter kind of nobody really wants to do anything during the winter because it's too cold and too snowy, and there's no real battlefield advantage at the time. So basically, we're still just seeing a lot of chess pieces. We'll see a lot of things happening, more as time goes on. Maybe not next year, but in 2022, maybe more. That's kind of how things go. Everybody's going to kind of suss out the new U.S. president if we get a new U.S. president. If not, maybe things will start happening earlier. Who knows? But we're always working on an analysis. Like I said, next month we are going to be doing a digest. So far it's half of the month, and there hasn't been a whole lot going on, so it's going to be a pretty small digest. And we're also going to be doing the Ask Me Anything. So if you have any questions you want to ask the director, please. We will be putting out a tweet. We will be putting out a post on the DEFCON community forums where you can post your questions. So don't post your questions here. Do that on the community forum. That's where we read them. We'll do our best to gather the questions where we can. But like I said, we do most of our interaction on the community forum. So it's community.defconwarningsystem.com. That's where you can interact with the staff. That's where you can ask our questions. Please don't ask us questions on Twitter. Please don't ask us questions on YouTube. We don't have the time to respond to them. We do try our best to read them, but we don't have time to respond to them. We want all the interactions to be on the community forum. That's where it's just it's easier for us to do. It's easier for us to do this that way, and we have a lot going on. So please, we ask your understanding in this matter. Please do your interactions on the community forum. A lot of our forums you don't have to sign up for, but some of the forums we do ask you to sign up for. It's just your name, your email address. We don't spam you. We don't send you emails from the forum. I think in our history we've done that only twice. In our entire history, we've only sent emails to our user forums twice, and that was for an administrative problem. We've never even done that during crisis. If you want an email, you have to specifically sign up for mailing list. The mailing list that we use is our Yahoo groups. That is ending in December. We're migrating over to our in-house, our own server mailing list. So it won't be through Yahoo. So you won't be giving your information to Yahoo. It'll just be our mailing list, and we don't give that information out to anyone. It's just us. It's just us to send out our updates. So you can feel more secure signing up for that, and that will be happening in a couple of weeks. So we'll make a little announcement on that on our site and our Twitter, our Facebook, and things like that. So like I said, we do have a Twitter, DEFCON WS alerts, DEFCON letter W, letter S alerts. We're on Parler for people who don't like Twitter. It's the same at DEFCON WS alerts. We do have our own Facebook, DEFCON warning system. So feel free to sign up for those. Definitely the Twitter and the Parler, because that's where we were able to send out our tweets, and if the DEFCON changes, we do have our own DEFCON warning system app for desktop app for the PC that pulls the alert code every 10 minutes. So that's definitely something. We're trying to get the one to work for Android. I know the one that we have kind of doesn't work a lot, and it's a little outdated. We're waiting for some money to come in. So turn off your ad blockers. I know nobody likes ads, but that's how we make our money. We don't sell things or anything like that because nobody was buying stuff. We actually did try that for a little while, but nobody wanted to buy any stuff. So, but turn off your ad blockers, please. That's how we make our money. That's how we pay for the servers. We do have to pay for our server that's coming up, and I know nobody wants to hear any of this stuff. So I'm gonna cut it short. I'm not gonna tell you about our money woes or anything like that. Please, thank you for your support. Thank you for liking us, and subscribing to us. Or is it this side? I can't tell. I never saw it because I don't see where the subscribe button is when I'm actually recording this. So it's here or it's here. Subscribe, and that way you'll know when we release these. Thank you for supporting us. I'm Thomas Lonelywolf, the director of the DEFCON Warning System.